This video just quickly shows the process I use to remove the ceramic water pump seal on Can-Am V-Twins without damaging the case halves or splitting them. The first step in this process is to remove the inner portion of the seal. To do this, I just use my favorite pry tool, whatever yours happens to be. I needed two hands to do this, so the video cuts off here in a second and skips ahead a bit. Okay, so you've got the center section of the seal out. The next part's the hard part. It's the one that's like kind of glued in there. What I do is I take a drill bit just big enough for the biggest hook you have, and you're going to drill right in next to the shaft and between the case. You don't want to drill too far in either direction. You don't want to mess up the shaft and you don't want to mess up the case. So when I'm doing this here, I'm using a 1/8 drill bit, and my hook is about 1/8 at the tip. It's also super helpful when you take the time to make sure your drill bit's tight, unlike me. It's also a good idea to drain the oil so that the oil doesn't spill all over the place, but I didn't here. And now you see me drilling a second hole in the same place on the opposite side, and that's because sometimes the steel of the seal rips when you try to pull it out. And the next step, which is why you probably want to drain the oil so you don't light the engine on fire, is to heat the ever-living crap out of that with a torch. And that's going to melt all the goo that's on the steel portion of that seal holding it into the case. When doing this, just be careful not to melt any of the plastic that you may have around there, like hoses or that pretty plate over the mag cover. And for what makes this step not damage the case, using your pick, go in there and pry the seal out in the hole that you just drilled. I typically pry in an upward motion, but you could also pry in a downward motion. And then pry out the oil seal using a 90-degree pick. The seal's probably been damaged by the drill bit or from the hook when you pried out the seal, so replace them as a set. Then you just clean it up, and as you can see, after it's all cleaned up, you have a nice undamaged place to put your new seal.